Hello.
All right, perfect. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to our 1 to 3 webinar for today. So, we are both teachers from one of the Milan schools, and we'll be introducing ourselves now as well, since we know that people are joining this webinar from many different places in Italy and maybe outside
Yes.
of Italy. So, I'm Chago. You can see my name on my camera. I am originally from Brazil. That's where the name comes from. But I partly grew up in California, and I have worked for my English school in Milan for 4 years now, more or
Oh,
less.
cool. Okay, and I'm Jadine. I have grown up in London and I've lived around the UK and also in Australia for 2 years, but this is my first year in Milan. I arrived in October, so it's all very new and exciting for me.
Except the last 2 weeks.
Oh, that's been extra exciting.
Yeah, no, but I'm happy that you came, before. You didn't just, move to Milan. That would have been quite strange, huh?
It's
So
true.
great, guys. So we see that there are two other people at the moment. What about you? Where are you from? Are you from Milan? Are you from another city in Italy? Uh,
Mm.
Put a comment so we know something about you too.
Yes, please introduce yourselves. And also remember, if you're watching but you're not logged in, maybe you won't be able to comment. So you can log in and then you can type to us and we can see everything that you have to ask and say.
Exactly. So today we will talk about describing a city. So a city and also different places in general. So we will be looking at a few ways there are to talk about to do in the city, monuments, etc. Peter from England.
Hi,
Hi,
Peter.
Peter.
Welcome.
And some adjectives so that you can talk about places and locations. Okay, so to start, here are some places that you can find that you see in a city. Okay, so we have the photos and the here. So A is the train station.
Perfect.
Exactly. And then, of course, ceremony at a university, which sometimes in American English, it's also commonly referred to as college. In American English, they basically mean the same thing. Okay, so let me
Mm.
put that in
Yes,
the.
but in British English, actually, a college is very different to a university. So, for British people, a college is the last 2 years of high school.
Yeah, so I think it's similar to in Italian. I think there's something like that, a collegio, and it's also related to secondary school. Okay,
Okay.
then here we have some paintings. So we are in a museum.
Yes, so this could be a museum, or we could say if it's only art that we are in a gallery. So I'll put that there as well.
Great. And then D, place where you can is a zoo. Okay, pay attention to the pronunciation because I know in Italian it's the same word, but it's not zo, but zoo. So soft z, zoo. Okay, a zoo.
It was very basic. Very basic. It's basic, very low
Yes.
sound.
Yeah. And then E, we have a hospital. Hospital. We have a. Also careful with pronunciation here because we don't really say the T. Okay, castle. Unless in British, would you say the T more? No, right?
No, castle. The T
Always
is
castle,
always
yeah.
silent.
Always castle. Exactly. And then G, of course, we have a park. Okay. So what are other places that you can find in a city? Do you have other ideas? For example, a place where you can have dinner or lunch. So if you have other ideas, you can tell us in the comments.
But also we can discuss. So, what things would you say, Thiago, are in the city of Milan? What do you think is missing from this list?
Well, so of course, Milan is a big city. So one of the things that are missing, I'd say Milan has a lot of, is of course churches. So a church.
Yes.
In Italy, we find many churches, a lot of bars. Bars, cafes, and that's also an interesting difference. Italian bar and cafe.
Yes.
Bar, place where usually you have drinks. So where you can have an aperitivo, you usually go to the bar. Whereas a cafe is what in Italian you could call it a bar. Cafe. Thank you. What about you, Jadine? Of course, London is a very big city, big metropolis. What are some other places that you think we can add to the list?
Ooh, so I know definitely for London, although I'm sure not only in the cities, but in London, we have a lot of banks, really very many banks. And also, we have lots of cinemas as well.
It's like cinemas. We can also talk about shops. Lots of shops.
Exactly.
Etc. Okay. So these are some places that you see city. And if we're talking about, for example, look at this question: what is in your city? We would use this expression: there is. There is if it's singular, and there are if it's plural. So in my city, there is a park and there is a university. Or in my city, there are 2 universities. So singular and plural. And of course, it can also be negative. So what isn't in your city? So in my city is a castle, or if it's plural, there aren't. Okay, so Jadine, what are some things that there is, there are, there isn't, there aren't in London?
Okay, so in London, there are train stations, definitely. There is a castle, but we call it the palace, which is where our queen lives. But there aren't many. We have a lot of things.
Yeah, everything almost, huh?
No, it's not true. There aren't any places for aperitivo.
Ah,
Aperitivo
so is it more
does not
common
exist.
to go to the pub after work?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So the pub is another kind of bar, but where you really only drink, no food.
So no, yeah, there's no unlimited food like you can get in Italy for aperitivo.
Maybe some snacks, but it's not the same.
Yes, exactly. And as for me, so I grew up in Sacramento, California. And when people imagine, when they think of California, they think about the beach where you have the ocean, palm trees, the sun. But Sacramento is very different because Sacramento is in the center of California. So there isn't a beach. There are
Oh,
two rivers. So many people like to go rafting or kayaking, but we don't have the beach vibe that many people associate with California. But there are
interesting.
many activities to do outside. There is good weather still in Sacramento. It's quite sunny. There isn't much rain, for example. And so people spend time outside doing different activities for sure.
In London, it's the opposite. There isn't any sun and there is lots of rain.
Exactly. All right. Perfect. Um, So, okay. And if you're asking the question, of course, in English, you just have to alternate. So, there is a church, affirmative. The question, is there a church? So, for instance, Jadine, in London, are there Italian restaurants?
There are Italian restaurants in London. How about in Brazil? Are there Italian restaurants?
Yes, there are many Italian restaurants. It's
Ah,
especially in São Paulo, where I come from, because there are many Italian immigrants
ah,
that came to Brazil in the past. And so there are many, many restaurants and cultural centers and things like that.
interesting.
And so, yeah, so for questions, that's it. Is there or are there? As you can see in the comments. All right, and here we have some of that vocabulary. So we're going to demonstrate a few more examples of this. So uh, in Milan, is there a castle?
There isn't a castle in Milan that I know of. um,
Yeah, I guess there is the Sforzesco, but it's more of a it's
yes,
not quite a castle, is it?
I
It's
don't
resembles
think
more of
so.
like some kind of fort or
Fort. I think a fort is a really good word.
yeah. Yeah, definitely, because it doesn't, at least when I imagine a castle, that is not the image that I have in my head. It's not like the Sforzesco Castle in Milan. And what about, are there train stations in Milan?
There are train stations in Milan. There are train stations and there are also metro stations, Or again, in British English, we would say underground stations or tube stations.
Yes, and especially in New York, you would say the subway. So there are different ways to talk
Okay.
about the metro.
Okay, so Thiago, in Milan, because I am new, so you can help me, are there any hospitals?
Yes, there are different hospitals in Milan. At the moment, they are very, very busy.
Yes,
But yes, there are some big hospitals in Milan.
good to know.
It-
Okay. And are there
okay,
any
and
zoos? For my final question.
any zoos? That's a good question. I don't know if there are any zoos in Milan. Personally, I never heard of a zoo here.
Ah,
So I don't know. I'm not sure, but I don't think so. Yeah, if any student knows, and you can let us know. I really don't know.
it would be interesting to
Okay, and
find
if you
out.
have any questions for Chris, you can ask the question: is there or yes? Okay. Now here, tell your partner what your city does not have. So let's see. Let me talk about. Okay, I guess I'll talk about Sacramento again because it's small. So, as I said before, in my city, in Sacramento, there aren't beaches. There isn't an ocean. Uh, what else? Also, I mentioned before the weather, there isn't much rain, but sometimes in the spring there is some rain. Um, and there aren't any aperitivo bars that I know of in Sacramento. There are some tapas bars, but not the Italian aperitivo.
So what is a tapas bar?
So tapas is similar to aperitivo. It's the Spanish version of an aperitivo, but I think the difference is that an aperitivo you pay for a drink and you have unlimited access to the buffet. And the Spanish tapas, you pay a little bit for each portion, and they bring that to you, or I think you can also go and just take it. But you pay, I believe, for the food. I think that's the main difference.
Okay. So then maybe at the moment I still prefer the aperitivo. I love free food.
Oh, definitely. Me too. But I when I go for an aperitivo in Milan, I notice that most people they are very contained. They take just a small plate, a little bit of food. Me, that's
Yes.
my dinner. I go 3, 4 times with a mountain of food on my plate.
Yes, because for me it's not normal, this idea of aperitivo, so I love it and I really use it as much as I can.
Exactly, me too. So wonderful. And well, of course, London is a very big international city, so there are so many things. But is there something that there isn't in London?
Yes, there's another thing that they have here in Milan that we do not have in London. It's also linked with food, and it's the all-you-can-eat sushi.
Ah,
There isn't any all-you-can-eat sushi in London. Sushi is very expensive. So again, I'm very happy to be here in Milan with the sushi. I love the sushi.
Yes, that for me it was a big surprise. Number one was how many sushi restaurants there are in Milan. Because before
Yes.
I came, I heard about the cotoletta, about the yellow risotto. But honestly, I think that the most typical Milanese food is sushi. Uh, and it is quite cheap. Yes, if you go for lunch during the week, especially €9, €10.
Mm,
It's quite, yeah, incredible. It's a very good deal, as we say in English.
yeah.
The money that you pay, you receive a lot for the money that you spend. Yeah, I don't think there are. See, in America, it's more common to eat Chinese buffet, but I
Yes.
don't think I have seen all you can eat sushi because, as you said, sushi is quite expensive. And so
Mm.
you usually buy like 4 rolls or 6 rolls at smaller portions. Yes.
Sushi. Sushi. But yes, is there anything is there anything that you have found in Milan that's really different from your home or that you would like which you feel would be good in your home, which you would like to have but isn't there?
Yes. Well, the biggest thing, I think it's something not only specific to Milan, but I think Europe in general, is that there are many people walking. There are many restaurants in the center. This is something that I really miss when I go back to the States, especially. In Brazil, you have more people on the streets, like in Milan. But in the States, people drive. There are many cars on the road. If you want to go to a restaurant or if you want to go to a bar or a pub, you have to drive there. And when you arrive, you just go inside. Whereas here, there are many places where you can sit outside. You can do people watching, which is just looking at people going by. Milan, of course, is a city with a lot of like kind of like different fashion styles, and I think that's really interesting to see the way people are dressed, and yeah, a lot of people outside. That's something
Oh,
that there isn't too much in the States in general, except for really big cities, maybe like New York. You would see
okay.
that more.
Is that because America is a lot bigger? Would you say it's bigger than countries in Europe? There's more space?
Yes, I think yes, the size of the country, of course, because it's very big. That's one reason. But also, I think there is a cultural reason, uh, as in because the people they usually live outside the city. For a
Ah,
long time, has been a preference to work in the center, work downtown, but live in the suburbs. So we have
ah,
this distinction. So center or downtown and suburbs outside. And so the cities are very spread out.
okay.
And so it's not simple. If I want to go to a restaurant, there are many different places that I can go. But in European cities, most businesses, restaurants, etc., are in the city center, and so people go to the same place.
Mm.
So the reason.
Because I've also
What do you
seen
think? What? Yeah.
in Milan, and I think most cities in Italy, there are many apartments in the cities. Everybody lives in apartments. Whereas at home in London, there is a mix of apartments and buildings, but also houses. And I don't think there are many houses in Milan.
Yeah, that's true. It's something I've always been curious about this because, of course, maybe in a city it makes sense because the space is limited, so you have buildings. But I noticed in Italy, also in small towns,
Yeah.
most of the buildings, most of the houses are tall buildings with people living together. So that's definitely a big difference. Yes, same in the US. It's the same in Brazil. There are many houses, individual houses. So that is an interesting difference. Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, I miss a house because, there's so many people around you all the time. Sometimes I just want my space. Sometimes maybe I want to listen to music at night or watch TV or play video games. And I always have to think, oh, maybe my neighbor can hear this. I should lower the volume.
Oh,
So that's
very
something I
nice,
miss.
very thoughtful of you.
Oh, I had some problems in the past, so
You had to learn from
it's a trauma now.
Okay, okay.
All right. Well, great. Um, okay, so we kind of talked about our cities. Let's maybe talk about some different cities, Jadine. Is there any
Okay.
city that you visited recently, a new place that you went to?
Yes. So I went to two very different places recently. The first one was Northern Ireland, and the second one was Lisbon in Portugal.
Ah, great.
Yes. So in Lisbon, there are lots of hills, very different to in Milan, which is very flat. But also, there are lots of trams as well to go up the hills. And everywhere, there are lots and lots of tiles on the wall, so patterned.
Mm-hmm.
Very beautiful.
Yes, tiles. Yeah, tiles are like squares that you through, or maybe the kitchen or decoration.
Exactly.
Yes, it's true. I remember when I visited Lisbon, it was exhausting. Yes, a lot of up and down and stairs and ramps. I
Yeah.
remember that. Yes. Wonderful. And when did you visit Lisbon? What time of the year?
I visited in at the end of summer, so just before I came to Milan.
Mm-hmm. Inside of Lisbon, are there beaches that you can visit?
Um, Outside of the city, yes, but where we stayed in Lisbon, there was the sea and the port, which is where boats can come and give the fish or any cargo, anything on the boat. But there were no beaches. So there weren't any beaches in Lisbon.
In this, yeah, not in the city, it's just outside. Okay, great. One city that I visited recently that I had never been to before was Rotterdam in the
Ah,
Netherlands. I in the past I had been to Amsterdam many times, and it was quite different. It's a little smaller than Amsterdam, but there aren't so many tourists like you see there, and so it feels more like a real city in some ways because Amsterdam, especially in the summer, there are so many tourists, so many
yeah. So
people.
who are the
It can feel.
tourists? Who are
Sorry,
the
the
tourists?
tourists.
Yes.
So the tourists are people who visit a place for.
Okay.
Yeah, so in Amsterdam, there are many tourists, and I felt like Rotterdam was there were fewer tourists, but there are still many restaurants, many activities. It is much more modern than Amsterdam, though. So the architecture is quite different.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was a big difference
Okay.
between
What
those cities.
did you like more? Did you like Amsterdam more, or did you prefer Rotterdam?
Hmm. They're very different places. I think it depends on what you want from your maybe holiday. I mean, of course, Amsterdam is really beautiful with the older houses and the canals, the architecture. It's very international. And so it's great to visit for those reasons. Rotterdam is more kind of like more of a business sort of city, very modern, a lot of buildings, which can be quite nice as well if you like modern architecture. If you want a quiet holiday or to not have so many people with you, I recommend more Rotterdam. But the city very, very close to each other. 40 minutes you can travel from one to the next. And so you can go for one day, depending where you're visiting.
Okay. Interesting. Okay.
Okay. Some of these questions, maybe we can talk a little bit about some adjectives to
Okay. Good.
talk about a place. So if you just give me 1 minute on the screen for us. So when we talk about places, as we saw before, we say there is, there are, but if we're using adjectives, we just have to say is or isn't. Are out in Milan, there is a cathedral. So that's the nouns and the adjectives. Let me get. Okay, the slides are loading. Seems like it's not loading actually. Okay, so we can think about some adjectives. To describe a city. Instead of and possibility.
Sorry, it just jumped. Can you say that again?
Of course, yes. So we talked about, so to describe a city, we can talk about the size of the city. So we can say big or small.
Yes.
That's one possibility.
Okay. It's true. Or the same as big or small, we can say something is large or tiny if you just want a different choice of adjectives.
Yes.
And
Of course, say that a city is exciting or boring.
yes, exactly. How would you describe the difference between Amsterdam and Rotterdam using people, or the differences in people?
Is it in people? Interesting question. To be honest, I didn't notice any big differences. Maybe also because my visit was very short, so I didn't have the opportunity
Oh,
to
okay.
maybe talk to so many people, some locals. But I would say, as we mentioned before, Amsterdam is much more international, and so you find, I think, more people from different countries. And in Rotterdam, yes, there are people from other countries, of course, but I think there are Dutch people. And Dutch is the adjective we use for someone from the Netherlands. So, and that's not German.
No.
It's an important.
Yeah, so in Amsterdam, there are lots more people, you've told me. So we can say Amsterdam is busier or more busy, whereas Rotterdam is more quiet.
Yes, absolutely. Use busy or many people did.
Yes, it's true. So usually I think Milan is quite crowded, but obviously at the moment with the quarantine, it is incredibly quiet. So very, very quiet outside.
Yes, today it was when I metro today to come to the school. There were maybe 5 people with me on the metro, which is a good thing, I think,
Wow.
that people stay at home if possible.
Yeah.
But it's very strange because I agree, Milan is usually quite.
Mm, exactly. Yes, so we had also spoken a bit before about a
Okay,
place
some
being
other
modern or historic.
yes, yeah. Before we talked about, for instance, that I see California. It's a big difference. Here, there is so much history, so it's the cool city, and you see this in the architecture in general. It's a very kind of historical in the city, whereas the U.S. and especially the West Coast of the U.S. Is very modern. So you not there aren't too many historical buildings, for example, like here. About so you said that you visited, so you went to Lisbon, but you also went to Northern Ireland. So what are
Yeah.
some differences there? What are that you can use to describe Northern Ireland, for example, if you compare to Lisbon, especially?
Well, I would say that Lisbon was very colorful, a very colorful city because we spoke about all the tiles and the bright colors. Whereas in Northern Ireland, it's a very grey city, actually, or quite a dark city. The buildings are all quite dark colors, and also the weather is very different. So Lisbon, I think, is colorful, whereas Northern Ireland is more grey or more dark. Um,
Yeah, that's interesting, especially because the weather is already gray. So you would expect maybe some colors though in the buildings.
yes, and also
Uh,
Lisbon is very open city. It's very large, whereas Belfast, which is the capital of Northern Ireland, um, Belfast is actually divided or separated into lots of little areas by very big walls, which I thought was surprising. I didn't know this.
Really, they have like walls separating.
Yes, they
That's
do.
interesting.
Yes. So it's quite different. Um,
Is Belfast, because you said it's very gray on the outside, so the sky, of course, because of the weather, the buildings, but maybe inside, is it cozy? It's another good adjective we can use.
Cozy. So I I wouldn't describe inside Belfast as cozy. Um, but there are many pubs, and inside the pubs it's cozy. There are lots of people,
Hmm.
but the people are very friendly, and there are lots of small areas where you can sit down that are very comfortable. So I think this is got a very cozy atmosphere.
Yeah, so cozy is a really nice adjective. Yeah, basically it's the sense of a place that feels quite warm, welcoming. Think about the winter, the fire, maybe like a nice cup of hot
Mm.
chocolate. See, that's very describe places. Cozy.
Yes. Although an interesting point to pick up again with British and American English is that in American English we spell cozy COSY, not with a Z or a Z.
Ah, yes, and that's, yeah. In many words, you see that the
Mm.
yeah, the Z or the S, or even the pronunciation Z Z. It's
Yeah.
another
But
one.
in both American and British English, it sounds the same. So cozy, cozy.
Cozy. Yeah, what would be the opposite of cozy?
Ooh, well, I think that the opposite of cozy would be spacious.
Yeah.
So if a place is spacious, there is a lot of space, lots of room to walk around or, yes, move around. Whereas if a place is cozy, then it's still a positive word, but it means the area is much smaller.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, first came to Italy, one of the things that were a little bit difficult for me, because of course I don't have, especially in the beginning, I didn't have too many things, too many objects or furniture. And so the
Ah,
houses here, they usually have a lot of space. Maybe not in Milan so much, but I also lived in smaller towns. And so the houses there, there was so much space, and I didn't have enough objects to put inside, and so it was difficult to make the house cozy, to feel, like I could go home and watch TV and relax. It always felt like just these big spaces, very tall, like ceiling, the part on top, of the room. Now, of course, in Milan, because spaces are smaller, the rent is very expensive. As
mm.
a result, my house is much more cozy, but also small.
But
Yeah.
again, that's different about Milan houses or apartments in Milan and apartments in London is that the ceiling, as you mentioned, in Milan are very high. Even if the room is small or cozy, the ceilings are really, really high. So there's more space like that. Whereas at home in London, the ceilings are much lower.
Yeah, I would say the same. Yeah, in the US, they're much, much lower. It's interesting, why so many apartments here are so tall.
Yeah, I think it's something to do with keeping the apartments cool in the summer, but I don't really understand.
Ah, I see. Yeah, cool. Yes, I'm trying to see if there are any other useful adjectives. We talk about, of course, big, small, large, tiny, boring, exciting, cozy. Uh, of course, we can talk about if it's clean or dirty.
Yes. Yes. So one of my favorite cities is Berlin in Germany, and I love it. It's a very busy city. It's a very historical and interesting city, but it's also a very dirty city. There's lots
It really
of
is, yes.
chewing gum on the floor. There's lots of graffiti on the walls, which I like. I like it, but this is very, very dirty.
Yeah, it was definitely a surprise the first time I visited. I also like Berlin very much. I now visited, I think, 4 or 5 times. So I really like going there.
Wow.
Because we have this image usually of Germany is very clean, very organized,
Yeah.
and Berlin is definitely an exception to that. Very different culture, of course. So you also see that, yeah.
Mm. Yes.
So fantastic, guys. So hopefully this was useful. If you're watching this video later, and so of course you cannot participate with us, we recommend doing a little bit of practice. Okay, so just think about a city that you visited. You can talk about your
Mhm.
own city and try to describe it using a combination of adjectives. So again, for adjectives, you just use verb to be. Milan is spacious, big, busy, etc. Or there are for things in Milan. There are churches. There is a cathedral. There are many sushi restaurants. There aren't many pubs, etc. So it's good for you to just kind of practice on your own as well. You can write down or you can just speak. Um, use it's a very useful skill to describe a place, a location.
Yes. Okay, so I have nothing to add.
All right, guys. So thank you again for joining us. And do have these webinars every day. You can
Yes.
check our social media pages and you get all this information. So we'll see you back tomorrow or maybe even tonight. I'm sure there are some activities. So just check the website and we'll see you then.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye.